Welcome to the Fanatical Elfz Show, part of the Elfz Network. We are a bunch of wild and crazy Cleveland Browns fans, bringing you all the latest in Browns news. Tune in now. Good evening and welcome to another episode of the Fanatical Elfz Show, part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm your host, John Suchan, again, along with our other hosts, Steve Gill and Elliot Cannell, who have their own great shows here on the Fanatical Elfz Network. We are happy to have everybody along listening to our wonderful takes tonight. It's a Thursday night as we prepare for the Brownies taking on those Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Schmo. Well, actually, wait, Joe Schmo's not playing. No, Kansas City. I'm already jumping ahead to week one, man. I'm like...
Slow down, man.
Slow down. All right. They're going to be playing Kansas City.
You're going to switch to decaf.
Not Cincinnati. Man, my head is just like, I'm 3 weeks ahead. The Browns do play in week one against the Cincinnati Bengals in 2 weeks. But before they get there, they play the Kansas City Chiefs Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock out there at Arrowhead Stadium, a great venue for football. And we have a lot to talk about tonight. If you're a Browns fan and you have been following along on social media anywhere in the world today, you will see that the Browns have been playing musical chairs with their quarterback situation. Not their lead quarterback. Deshaun is still there. He's safe and ready to go. But we have some news on that. The gist of it right now, we're going to go around the room here and talk about it. But as of right now, Josh Dobbs was traded, and we'll get into the details of that. Kellen Mond was waived earlier in the day, but it sounds like he's coming back. And Deshaun Watson is still the lead cat at the top. And so that's kind of where we're at. We're also going to be talking today about the restructuring of several contracts. I know Steve and Elliot have both talked about these players, including Myles Garrett, Joel Patonio. I think David Njoku throw him in there. And We're going to talk about that, maybe a little bit about Nick Chubb, what could be on the horizon for that. I have some questions for the guys here. So the big news today, again, is the quarterback situation. Again, welcome, Elliot and Steve. If you're watching our show on YouTube or on Twitter or the X, you'll see that Steve is in a wonderful location. He can share out where he's coming from, but he's outside. And so we'll start there with Steve, who's got his Browns gear on, representing, and welcome.
Hello, guys. I am in the wilds of north central Pennsylvania.
Excellent.
On a piece of property that my grandfather bought for $250 in 1962.
Really?
Excellent.
In a cottage that my dad found at the Cleveland Outdoor Show when I was about 6 years old.
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
This place is our family relaxation place.
Oh.
You come up here, you get out of Nashville where it's 99 degrees, 107 degrees heat. And I think today it got up to 70.
Oh, boy, I've been at that same outdoor show. My dad used to take me to that show every year.
Oh, my dad. Oh, we loved going to that.
What was it called again?
It was
Cleveland Outdoor Show.
Cleveland Outdoor Show.
Nice.
He had a client.
Downtown, what was it? We're at the Masonic Temple or something? Where was that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. We had a client that had these new prefab type buildings. They're made of cedar, and my dad just loved it. And all my uncles came up from Florida who are all plumbers and electricians, and a bunch of my cousins came down here, and they dug a well and built this place.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Oh, it is fantastic.
So you're a little bit north. You're in Pennsylvania, but you're a little bit north of New York, south of New York State. Tell us, you're kind of...
Yeah, we're about 40 miles south of the New York State line.
Okay.
We're near the Susquehanna National Forest, the Susquehanna State Forest, Allegheny National Forest. And
how far are you from
over my shoulder? About 5 miles is Pennsylvania Grand Canyon.
Yes, you mentioned that off air. So tell us about the
big ditch.
The big ditch.
It's like a mile down.
Now, we had a big ditch in Wichita. That was for the flooding, or if they would ever flood, they always called it the big ditch. It was this big thing around the city of Wichita because we were out there in the plains. But I think your big ditch in Pennsylvania is probably a little bit prettier.
Yes, this body of water behind me is called Pine Creek. Back in 1970, National Geographic rated it one of the 10 best trout fishing streams in America. That's why we get a lot of water fowl. I mean, we get mergansers, great blue heron, kingfishers, osprey, and bald eagles.
Mm-hmm. So, wow. Yes, Steve, you said we might see a couple. We'll see what we can see in the background there. So everybody will be on the lookout if you're watching this on YouTube or on Twitter. So let's talk quarterbacks here. The Browns first made a trade. Oh, I like your cup. It's Halloweenish. It's kind of scary. It's like a pumpkin. So the Brownies traded Josh Dobbs and a 7th round pick to the Arizona Cardinals for a 5th round pick. And I would like to start talking about that first. Let's start with you, Elliot, on your perspective first on that trade.
Well, I really personally hated to see Dobbs go. Fellow rocket scientist, he was from the University of Tennessee at Tullahoma, I believe. Isn't that right, Steve?
And that's where the Tullahoma is where the rocket. Yeah,
he's a brilliant guy, absolutely brilliant.
Diet Coke.
He's an athlete, and I really think that he has a potential to be a really outstanding quarterback. Just never really got playing time in the NFL, and he could probably get it at Arizona because the starting quarterback, remember, Kyler Murray had that ACL injury, is not going to be ready to start the season, and the guy in Arizona is another former Browns quarterback,
an old timer,
Colt McCoy. And so I think that as soon as he's able to, we're going to see Rocket Man take that job. So yes. I think it's very exciting for him. Well, I think when you get the opportunity to get a 5th round pick for a backup quarterback, it's usually a good trade. And we like Dorian Thompson Robinson. We feel that he has a really good future ahead of him. Yes. So it makes sense to make that deal. We also think that Kellen Mond is probably a good quarterback as well at 3rd string.
Yep.
Browns probably will keep 3 quarterbacks this season. It's generally a good policy, and the rules tend to favor 3 quarterbacks this year. You're allowed to keep 3, and you sort of get a opportunity to have the 3rd string guy effectively be on the game day roster, even if it's not part of the 46
right
allowed to be on the normal roster. So they're telling clubs we don't want to have a debacle where you have to put in a position player at quarterback like the NFC Championship game with San Francisco last season. So I think it's a good move. Kellen Mond is a pretty good prospect in his own right.
Yeah.
It's a good thing for the Browns.
You wonder what really happened earlier. I mean, how it all transferred. I mean, I know these guys are always talking on the phone and everything, but the fact that initially it was announced that Mond was being waived, and then this trade.
Kevin Stefanski said that Dobbs was number 2 today.
Yes, yeah, that's the other conversation. Yes,
I don't understand the timing. Why did they want to waive Mond before the end of summer camp? That's the part that I don't understand.
Good question.
Yeah. So as far as, Mond, we've watched him a little bit. I mean, the other guy that we're not talking about right now, and the reason, some Browns fans are over the moon is because this DTR kid, Dorian Thompson Robinson, who's had a heck of a preseason. He's done some really good things, and he's presumably now, even though Stefanski came out this morning and said Well, Dobbs is number 2. Well, now Dobbs is traded, so it's presumed that DTR will be the number 2 guy, which has a lot of fans that are excited. I don't know why they're so excited. I mean, it's nice to have him as the backup, but Deshaun Watson is the guy.
Yeah, DTR cannot be the number 1 quarterback no matter what happens.
Right.
So but, on the other hand, we do want to have a quarterback factory where we have a lot of guys that come out of Cleveland and become successful quarterbacks. Cleveland has been pathological for a number of years where they feel like the backup quarterback is an enemy of the state. Where we hate the backup quarterback. We think that he's an enemy that has to be destroyed. And that has been the case ever since Vinny Testaverde sabotaged Bernie Kosar. Ever since that happened, we've never liked the backup quarterback.
Speaking of, he was
a member of the team.
He wasn't a backup, but the other news in the league this week has been, Baker Mayfield won the job down in Tampa Bay. And, I expected that to be the case.
Yes.
I think a lot of us.
I'm still a Baker fan. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see what he does. I mean, he's going to be playing after, Tom Brady has been there for a while. And there'll be some, Tampa's had some good teams over the years. So there'll be some actually, high expectations. We'll see what happens. But, yeah, I'm happy for Baker. I think we always, we want to move on from Baker, but he did. And I always say this. I mean, he did a lot for this time.
Yeah,
I heard someone recently comment, well, it wasn't a good fit, but it's like, I don't agree with that necessarily. Maybe, he's high maintenance and he's a rebel rouser, but it was a good fit. The Browns won and they made it to the playoffs and they have Baker Mayfield to thank for that. So I don't necessarily agree with that assessment that he was never a good fit. I mean, I don't think the Browns have ever really,
What Baker did, in my mind, was that he got in such a big mess with OBJ and basically lost the team that I don't think that they could recover in the locker room.
Yeah.
And I think that's why he had to leave.
Yeah.
Is that he should have sat himself down and let the backup quarterback play. And, he really did have the problem where he would get mad at a receiver and wouldn't throw the ball to him.
Right.
All that was real. And, sometimes he wouldn't throw the ball to Donovan Peoples-Jones, and sometimes he wouldn't throw the ball to Nick Chubb, and sometimes he wouldn't throw the ball to OBJ. And eventually it got too political, and the coaching staff had enough, and they finally decided that they had to part ways.
Yeah.
But he was a good quarterback. He got the Browns to the playoffs. That was surreal.
Yep.
And he deserves all the credit for doing that. And people who can't remember that they beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh and rang up 48 points against Pittsburgh and should have beat Kansas City the following week. People don't remember that, but it happened.
Yeah,
and
it really did.
Mayfield deserves credit for a lot of that. And he's good enough to win in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Don't you forget it.
Steve, what are your assessments on basically what we've been talking about? Your observations of DTR, the Baker Mayfield latest news, or where are you at? Let's just start with DTR and then Josh Dobbs and all. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. First of all, I have to move this. I have a hummingbird that keeps
nice
sliding up, going after my cup.
No way. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, they're used to us. DTR definitely deserved to be the number 2 quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's playing against backups, but I think the Philadelphia game really cemented it. He was going against Phillies 2s and 3s who aren't bad. And he just gives like I keep saying, he gives a spark to this team.
He did.
Kellen Mond has impressed me in the last 2 games. He looks really good in this system. So I was kind of shocked when they first announced they waived him. I thought, wow. Geez, hopefully they can bring him back on the practice squad. So, as a number 3, I feel comfortable with that. I think the quarterback room is in good shape.
Good. Yeah. No, I think it's definitely there's a lot that's going to happen now over the next 2 weeks. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys know this more than I do, but I know I've had some fans of the Browns asking me off air and when I'm at my other job about how the Browns get down to this 53-man roster. And in the past, over the years, they announced, so many cuts. But this year, my understanding is that they're announcing all the cuts after the preseason's over, correct? That all
Tuesday,
teams are
29th by 4 p.m. They have to be down to 53.
So okay.
I figured out why they waived. I figured out why they waived Mond.
Why?
Okay.
Yeah. Because if they go first, nobody else wants to cut a quarterback and claim Mond. How about that? So they thought that they could get him through, get him on the practice squad, and that way they could keep him and then even use him as a temporary promotion.
Yeah.
And make him the third string guy. That's why they wanted to do that. But now I think that they will actually use a roster spot to.
Okay.
That's why they did that. So they weren't wanting to get rid of him. They were wanting to keep him on the practice squad. Okay. And they thought by doing this, there was less of a chance that he would actually get claimed on waivers.
Not a bad idea.
That.
We're going to go ahead. I think he still ends up on the practice squad, but we'll see.
No, I mean, they're not going to waive him again. I think they keep him now.
Okay.
Waiving him at the cutdown time would increase the chances that he would get claimed because they have cleared roster spots by waiving their own guy. How about
Just remember, the final 53 we get to on the 29th
isn't going to be
the final 53.
Right.
Right.
Well, we'll pick up there. We're going to talk about the all these changes with contracts and extensions and renegotiating those. We're going to break real quick here on the Fanatical Elfz Network. We're on the Fanatical Elfz Show. We're also going to share out a new giveaway that our Fanatical Elfz, our Fans First Sports Network is giving away, that we want to share those details if you're listening or watching us. It's a really good bit. So we'll be right back. Again, this is the Fanatical Elfz Show, and thanks for joining us. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. We're going to break right now. Okay, we are back here on the Fanatical Elfz Network. Woohoo! Thanks for coming back. So we're talking about these. The other part of this is these contract extensions that have happened over the series of this last week. Joel Petonio, I think, was first. Then Myles Garrett, David Njoku. Am I missing somebody?
No.
Okay, so because of that, my understanding is we're somewhere in that $30 to $40 million cap space now, and 37. So people are speculating what the Browns could be leaning into. I know our colleague Joel Cade mentioned a few possibilities if the Browns were interested in still using some of that money, but the other part of this is that teams like the Browns would just push this money to next year. And so I want your assessment on that. Let's start with you, Steve.
They're pushing it to next year. Don't get your hopes up. They're not going to make a big signing. They're going to use this money, carry it over to next year.
Okay,
it's that simple. This is what Andrew Berry does best.
So
and
Joel,
I wouldn't be surprised if you might see another restructure or two.
See, now I have a problem. The one guy that I keep hearing about today, and again, and this is because I have this thing, Denzel Ward's name keeps popping up.
I've heard that too.
And I'm hoping the Browns are recognized. I know he can play. I know the guy is good, but I just feel like he's an injury in the making. He's a walking injury, and I just don't feel like.
So am I. So, but they're not going to pay me any money.
So. Anyway, I mean, Joel Cade, our guy who does What the Elf Is That show and the Brownie Acts with Elliot down there, which is a great new show. You should check it out, the Brownie Acts. And then, of course, Steve has the Dog Pound South and great stuff there. Both these guys bring it every week. But names like Devontae Adams, Aaron Darnold, Jake Matthews, the left tackle. These are possibilities that Joel mentioned in his show. I'm not sure about the first two. The Jake Matthews, the left tackle,
that intrigues me. That intrigues me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not happy with James Hudson or Jedrick Wills.
Yeah,
at this point.
Yeah.
And before we came on the show, Elliot was talking about what type of compensation they might get for Jedrick Wills. So,
do you think that? So, I mean, DeJuan Jones right now is like, I wrote about him in Dog Pound Daily. That I think that article is coming out tomorrow about players in the Browns to watch, and you can't miss DeJuan Jones. The kid's 6'8", 6'9", 375, and it's just fun watching the kid. And he's learned. I think he's progressing. I mean, we've just watching him over the first 3 weeks. It just seems like he's getting more respect. And I mean, you see these other guys from the Eagles and players trying to get around him. He's a beast. And you don't see too many guys like that on the line. And considering that there are players that the Browns have like Jack Conklin, who's 29 years old now, some of these other players, I think DeJuan Jones could be really a long-term solution there. And then you talk about like somebody like Luke Weipler, the center they picked up from the Buckeyes as well. I mean, the Browns are making some good decisions. Will it pay off? Elliot, your thoughts on the restructuring of some of these contracts, and will the Browns do anything right now, or they, like Steve says, are just going to carry this over to next year?
Well, I'm actually very glad that this happened because I've had a terrible off season. I predicted all this stuff, and it never happened. It never happened. I said they've got to restructure Myles Garrett. This contract makes no sense. It has to be restructured. But what I didn't expect was that they would restructure Deshaun Watson. And the reason, because his contract was so, the amount of money that they had on his deal was so high that I thought that they needed to pay that down a little bit. And so I thought that Bitonio and then especially Myles needed to get some extra money, and I think Nick Chubb also needed to be extended, and it didn't happen. And so I just really felt like I had mud all over my face. Like, what the hell? I don't know anything about NFL football, but now all these things that I foretold, have come to pass, and so all the things that my boss at Dog Pound Daily made fun of me for now start to look pretty good. Now, what the master plan is, they're still way overspent in 2024. So what the master plan is that we need to have Deshaun Watson have a good year and to like Cleveland so that they can extend him, give him an additional year at the end of his contract and push some money out of 2024.
Right.
That they can have a decent budget and still keep most of the people that they like, because they're way overspent.
Let me talk about another guy that we've already talked
about that they need to do in order to have a football team next year. If they don't do it, then they're going to have to cut a whole bunch of players.
All right.
So that's what I think
Steve,
the long-term plan is.
Elliot, Nick Chubb, Tony Grossi, who we talk about, he came on the show earlier this week on ESPN Cleveland, and they talked about Nick Chubb, and would there be another move, an unexpected move, even now? And they talked about Nick, and I've been, many of us, I want him here. I mean, I don't want him moving, going anywhere else, and I just wanted your thoughts on that. I think it would be a great move, and I think Nick Chubb is unique. He's different. It doesn't have to be a huge long-term deal. I think Grossi said just an extension of another year or two.
2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. So
that would do it.
I just think Nick Chubb, I on the back of my mind, I think, okay, all this money, they're pushing it. I get that. But could they still, I mean, Tony Grossi's suggesting it, not that Tony's ever right, but he is right sometimes. And I think a lot of us fans love Nick Chubb. And I think Nick Chubb loves the Browns. And considering all the things that we've talked about in this show, Hall of Fame, all this stuff. The Browns get to the playoffs. Would there be a chance that they try to pick him up and give him that extension before the season starts? Or do you think it's still, we're just going to wait till next offseason?
Well, I think what they need to do is to find a formula that right now Nick Chubb has zero guaranteed dollars in 2024. And what they need to do is to find a way to avoid giving him a lot of money in 2024 and move some of that money into 2025.
Yeah.
So I don't think that they're going to guarantee him tons and tons of money because of the nature of the running back position. Everybody has to understand that.
Yeah.
But they do need to do something to reduce the guaranteed dollars in 2024. And I think that they can probably work that out in some way with with the agent. He does need to get paid, and he should be paid at the top of his profession. But they do need to move some money out of 2024. That's what they need to do.
Steve, what are your assessment on Nick Chubb? Where do you think we're at with this?
Yeah, I think they could do it. Add a couple of years. Get rid of that $12.2 million. I think he's owed next year, Elliot. Something like that.
Something like that, and $0
so
guaranteed.
Convert that into upfront cash. I mean, the Browns lead the league in cash payments, not cap space, cash payments. Jimmy Hasman showed that he will write big checks, and he's not afraid of writing big checks for upfront money. As for Deshaun Watson, I think they redo his deal again next year. They can chop $45 million by redoing his deal again next year. And like Elliot said, add a couple of years to the end of it. I mean, that's perfectly reasonable for Andrew Berry to do. But yeah, I could see him doing Nick Chubb for
I think that would be extension. That would be. I don't know if they do it. I mean, usually teams like to do these things before the season starts, right? They don't like to do them when they get 3 or 4.
Well, they've done contract extensions in October before, so that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, if the player is open to it,
I think if the Cleveland Browns get some momentum and they start the season and they are winning, I think it would be like, obviously we want to get to the playoffs and all this stuff, but doing something like that would just be really great momentum. The team knows that. I believe that Nick Chubb is that guy that everybody on the team really respects the most, from players to coaches. And we want to keep Nick here in Cleveland. So let's talk about, Elliot.
What I think, if I were in charge of creative contracting, is I would create a contract where the player has some amount of guarantee for the following year, and the team has an option at a much higher level so that the player is incentivized to go out and have a great year, so more, and then the team has an option that's something that's more than 12 million, like let's say it's 14-15 million dollars.
Sure.
And so
with some incentive
that way that you have a incentive to get
a motivated
higher
player.
number, and then you have a floor that's guaranteed so that you're not left with zero.
I just have this sense, Ellie, don't you? I mean, I think we all, I think Chubb's already had an extraordinary career, and everything is telling us that he's just going to, barring an injury, knock on wood here.
Put me in charge of it. I'll mediate a solution that's acceptable to both sides.
So let's talk just briefly. We're going to talk about the game. I also I had a couple follow-up things. We're going to talk about this giveaway as well. And I had a chance to go to the Football Hall of Fame in Canton last weekend. I wanted to talk to you guys about that before we leave tonight. But let's talk about the game for Saturday at 1:00. I don't know what channel it's on. Is it NFL
Network?
NFL Network. It'll be
so
fine.
I have to suffer through the opposing team's announcers like I did the Eagles when I watched Thursday night game because I'm out of town. And Ross Tucker is terrible. I'll just put it out there right now.
Well, I don't really like Browns.
He wouldn't announce one Browns player's name. It was all Eagles.
Well, but these guys that do the Browns, I don't know if Elliot knows it. The guy, well, it's Joe Thomas, the color guy, obviously a Hall of Famer. And then the other guy who's been around, I forget his name. I can't think of it, but he's a Cleveland guy been on ESPN over the years, and anyway, I have to turn the volume down. I think a lot of fans do
they're
too.
great. I like them.
I think I don't know.
I love Joe Segura.
What is it?
No, it's not Nathan. It's
no, it's
how's Jim Donovan? Is he
Chris Rose?
Okay, health wise?
I don't know how quick. I don't
Chris
know.
Rose.
Chris Rose.
Yeah.
Chris Rose, and they're not bad. It just anyway. Let's talk about the game.
Eagle guys. Let me.
So the Browns are playing their starters anywhere between 20 and 25 plays. That could end up being a couple drives, maybe 3 drives. Could be the whole first half,
or it could be it could be 2.
Yeah,
3 drives.
I'd like to see the Browns punch the ball in to the end zone. I will say this though about what Deshaun Watson made a point today at practice today, and he was talking about practice and talking about us media and saying, and this is very true, and those we've all played the game or coached it.
It's talking about you, John, not talking about me.
So but what he's saying is that a lot of times when we're watching these guys play at practice and training camp, we're not privy to what exactly the coaches are calling and what they're asking them to do. It might be a 3rd down situation or a 4th down situation, or they want this or that. And so when we see things that are happening in an incomplete pass, or we're asking the defense to do this or that, it's not necessarily just that they're going out there and playing every play like, they're doing specific things. And that's where there's a disconnect. And so I think that was really good that Watson shared that. I don't know if you heard his take today, but I listened to it this afternoon, and I thought that's a very good thing that a lot of fans aren't listening to that. We are, because we're paying attention to the Browns. Maybe they'll listen to our podcast. But when we're seeing these things in players catching passes and not dropping something, we get mad, or there's an interception by Watson. We're like, oh my God, or Baker Mayfield, who's not even with the Browns. Oh, he's thrown 10 interceptions, in preseason. It's like, who cares? It's practice.
We're talking about
practice. Anyway, so we're going to see the Browns. The starters are going to play. We're not going to see Nick Chubb. We're not going to see Myles Garrett. We're going to see Deshaun Watson. We're going to see, I don't know, will Amari Cooper be there? You think they'll put him out? Yeah. We'll probably see, though, I hope that they keep out Elijah Moore, because he had the injury a little bit, and hopefully they'll keep him away. But
we know what he can do.
I'm anxious to see Austin Watkins. I mean, this kid deserves a spot.
I don't know what Elijah Moore can do. I have no idea what he can do.
But let's talk about Austin. I want to talk about Austin Watkins, because this kid's story, the background, we've all looked at it a little bit. I find it just fascinating. He's 25 years old.
Yeah.
He didn't get drafted. He didn't get drafted. He was signed as a free agent, played with the 49ers during their training camp one year. It was like 2020 or 2021. Lasted almost the whole training camp, got cut, signed by the Buccaneers for like a day, and then went up to Canada and played for like a week, or didn't even play. I think he made the Saskatchewan. And now 6 months ago, signed up with the Memphis Showboats, who used to be another USFL team, and then landed now with the Birmingham Stallions. He went to the University of Alabama, Birmingham, and now he's 25 years old. He comes to Cleveland. He's having a crazy, exceptional preseason that's better than any wide receiver in the league. He had 7 receptions for 139 yards and a touchdown. I think he's got 16 receptions and 250 yards during preseason. He's doing everything. He's catching balls from Kellen Mond, from Josh Dobbs to DTR. He's 6'3". I hope that they keep him. I think that everyone is pushing for him to be kept. I think he's earned it. But considering his track record, you got to wonder what happened. He landed in the CFL for a day, and now he's on the cusp of making a 53-man roster here in Cleveland. Steve, you have thoughts on that? Because I'm just studying this guy, and it's like, I think he's going to be great, but then you look at his background, it's like, well, maybe he just figured it out now. He's 25.
Well, as he puts it, as cousin Sammy Watkins told him, just concentrate on what you're doing, keep your head down and grind. And he's done that. I'm very impressed with this kid. I know that if you have the number one preseason wide receiver and the number one preseason quarterback, that's like winning the beauty contest for Miss Personality. But it's still impressive the way this kid runs routes. If you really watch the games and watch him come off the line of scrimmage, he's really, really football smart. And I think there is room on the 53-man roster for a wide receiver like that. He's played himself on this roster.
Do you remember? And just the funny thing for me personally is that I was watching that UCFL championship game. I just happened to turn it on, and I believe it was Austin Watkins who caught a touchdown pass in that championship game. And at the time, I didn't know who this kid was, but I remember his name was Watkins. And I was just like, oh, wow, it was a good route. And it was a touchdown, and Birmingham was going to win another USFL championship. And now he lands in Cleveland. So, Elliot, what do you think about Austin Watkins?
Yeah, I think whenever you excel at some level of competition, that's evidence that you have a chance to succeed at a higher level. So I do think that these so-called minor leagues of football are fertile grounds for possible promotion to the NFL, and I think he should be taken seriously as a prospect. And I think the preseason games are further evidence that he can probably play. So I think that they should keep him on the roster, and I think that he should get playing time in the regular season.
And I like seeing things too, like David Bell. This preseason,
I think, is very good this preseason.
Yes, and I think
Bell can get open. Yeah, I think he can get open. He can catch.
He had such a successful career at Purdue, and he caught everything. If you watch video of him from his college days at Purdue, he was just dynamite. He was the Big Ten wide receiver of the year. So I think the Browns really have something going there in so many departments. So I'm excited to see what he can bring to the team. And then we're not even talking about Amari Cooper, and DPJ. I mean, so any thought that I just thought could cross my mind, but do you either one of you think that DPR, Donovan Peoples-Jones, potential, would there be any chance that the Browns, if they were looking at a trade, because he's in this last year of his contract, could he be thrown into a trade, like surprisingly?
No, I mean, they wouldn't. What are you going to offer me in exchange for him? I mean, he's a starting wide receiver.
Well, what about this Jake Matthews kid? No, is he a free agent, or is he
trades in football are generally bad because you've got so much time invested in the Browns system. He's got 3 years plus in the system and knows how to play for the Browns.
Yeah.
And so he's more valuable to the Browns than he is to any other team. So I don't know why people don't like Donovan Peoples-Jones. I guess because he's from Michigan.
Oh, so speaking of Michigan, there was that.
Like people from Michigan, but he's been a very good receiver from the time that he put on the uniform. And I don't want to say that he's not tradable. Everybody on the team is tradable except for Deshaun Watson. But there's no reason to think that he's an excess wide receiver or anything like that.
Okay,
he's a starter.
Yeah. Any follow up on that, Steve? You got any words on that situation?
Well, the reason they drafted Cedric Tillman was to replace Donovan Peoples-Jones. I mean, his next contract is going to be in the $12 to $14 million range, and I just can't see the Browns paying that for him. I love Donovan Peoples-Jones. He's a great wide receiver.
He isn't vacant yet. He's still on the team. He doesn't need
to be he is still on the team. And I think they'll keep him on the team.
Yeah.
This year, he's a valuable contributor to this wide receiver.
I mean, we're really seeing some great things. And Cedric Tillman really was an outstanding college athlete. It was just he was injured. But what we're seeing also, that's exciting too, because you're getting another kid who's 6'3", and his skill set and route running and leaping up, and his extensions are just really cool. I mean, you got a couple guys now, Austin Watkins, Cedric Tillman. You got this young core to go along with somebody like Amari Cooper, who's leading the charge.
You always need wide receivers. You don't.
And we're not even talking. We haven't even started talking about the tight end situation. I mean, we got Jordan Atkins, who, is he going to play Saturday? Jordan Atkins. I haven't seen much of. Have we seen?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know.
I haven't. Yeah, is he played in the previous games? Because have I missed him, or did I?
No, he has not played in the.
Okay,
it's been Forrestall and
no, Jordan Atkins'
favorite,
he's
Mitchell
played.
Padden.
I don't think so.
Yes, he has played. I watched him play.
Okay,
he's primarily a blocker, but they used him also as a fullback.
Oh, all right.
They had three tight end formations, which I thought, that's kind of interesting. And
so finally, Elliot, I have a question for you and Steve, since you guys are, I went to the Hall of Fame this past week in Canton, and I just wanted to share this out, and I think I've shared it out briefly on one of my other shows. I had the Evan Gibbons Sunday show last Sunday, but I just want to give a shout. I gave a shout out then, and against the Cleveland Browns, the Browns backers, which is a worldwide organization, and Steve and his wife are lifelong members, and Elliot attends over there down in the Dayton area and Beaver Creek. And what's really been impressive is they have put together every year for the Browns backers presidents a weekend that starts on a Thursday and it goes all the way through Sunday. And they really have been topping it off every year. And this past year,
training camp?
Yeah. So
I went to one of those.
So just to give the fans and people that are listening, if you're a Browns backers and member, and the presidents, they start off on a Thursday night. They had the preseason game Thursday night. They gathered at a local establishment there in Berea. Friday, then they had a dinner with Joe Thomas down at the stadium. Joe Thomas was their speaker, and the Browns backers presidents got an opportunity to eat and get autographs. I was going, but I only made it to Worcester. I started out in Columbus, and I had a long week with my other job, and was even though I will forever be guilty of not having an opportunity to meet Joe. But then Saturday,
shame on you.
Then they gathered the troops in Cleveland, and they took a couple bus loads of the Browns backer presidents over to Canton to the Football Hall of Fame, where they then had a catered meal and then gave them a tour of the Hall of Fame. And it finished off Sunday with a trip to Berea again for their training camp practice. And I just think it's amazing what they're able to do. And I just give a shout out to the organization for being able to do that. I think it's a really nice gesture and what they've done. But I had a chance to go to the Hall of Fame. So I wanted your take on the Browns backers. But I also, while I was there at the Hall of Fame, got to go into where all the busts of the players are. And I was just curious, one, if you've been there, and two, what are some Hall of Famers of your favorites, not necessarily Browns players. There's just hundreds of these players in there, and it was really a neat thing, because every year you watch the Hall of Fame, you see their bust, and then they're all together in this one gallery, and you go around, and many of us were taking pictures, and like Jim Brown and Otto Graham, some of the great Browns, and so I just wanted your thoughts on that. If you've been there before, or they've really been doing it up too. They've added all these extra things around the initial stadium, the initial museum. And what are some of your favorite Hall of Famers? If you get an opportunity, you'd like to see them, their busts, that is. Let's go with you, Steve.
I've never been to the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
I would just like to walk through and soak in the entire experience. I mean, of course, you want to see Jim Brown, you want to see Otto Graham, you want to see Marion Motley. I mean, you want to see those guys that built this franchise.
Yeah, like Bill Willis. Is it Bill Willis? That was another
Bill
guy.
Willis, yeah.
Yeah.
I would love to see those.
Yeah, it was really cool.
As for the Brownsbacker President Weekend,
Yeah.
it's a phenomenal thing. I wasn't going to go, but my wife and my club treasurer, who has a family in New Brunswick, Pennsylvania, which is right across the state line from Youngstown, which I call Checkpoint Charlie. We drove into Cleveland every day. We had a blast.
Wonderful.
I mean, you take part in a forum with former Browns like Brian Brennan and all these guys, and you go to the game, and then on Sunday you go to training camp. You're in the VIP section. I mean, it just was a phenomenal experience. It really was.
It just seems like every year they're doing more and more. I never got to do it when I go to that program when I was the actual president of the Wichita group, but my friend and current president Josh out there in Wichita, he actually flew in that Thursday, and then he invited me as his guest. So it was really a tremendous kind gesture on his part. So I want to thank Josh for that. Elliot, have you been there?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I think for me, some of the most impressive things or people at the hall would be Jim Thorpe. As a Clevelander, I want people to understand that Jim Thorpe, the first commissioner and also the premier athlete in 1920.
Yep.
He's one of us, man. He was Canton Bulldogs, but he was also part of the Cleveland Bulldogs in the early days. There were two teams named Bulldogs. One was in Canton, one was in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And also Fritz Pollard in Akron was the first black quarterback and the first black football coach. And, he was in Northeast Ohio, too. He's one of us.
Well,
in Northern Ohio. This is part of our heritage.
Yep. I wanted to share. There's a thing in there. Steve, you haven't been there. I don't know if it was there, Elliot, when you were there. And it was really my first time in there, considering I lived in Worcester growing up, that I never made it over there. But they have they have all these things to see. And one of the things they have is this really large poster or sign where they have all the teams in the NFL that are listed, and they have their records every season. Mm-hmm. And they also listed some former teams that were part of the NFL or part of pro football. And so I took a picture. And so here are some of the former names. Elliot, you just mentioned one: Canton Bulldogs, the Chicago Tigers, the Cleveland Tigers back in 1921, the Dayton Triangles, the Rochester Jeffersons, the Tonawanda Cardex, the Milwaukee Badgers, the Toledo Maroons, Detroit Panthers, Providence Steamrollers, the Los Angeles Buccaneers. So these are all former pro teams. I think from the NFL, or not in the NFL, but they were like teams that these were their original names. And I just thought those are some crazy. There was a team called the Columbus Panhandlers.
I know all about those guys, man.
Yeah, they were around. They were.
Now, don't get me started. I can talk about they were not panhandlers. They were the panhandles, because the train ran through the West Virginia Panhandle on its way to Columbus.
Oh.
And they were famous. They were blue collar.
Yeah, you got to believe it. He was a season ticket holder. So.
Oh, you bet.
Well, Steve, you'll have to make a trip. You'll have to make a trip up there, because I think you would love it. All the history there. Guys, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. We're looking forward to the game Saturday afternoon. Again, the Browns will be playing on NFL Network. Steve will have to listen to the opposing.
No, I'm going to mute it like I did the Eagle guys. I can figure out what's going on. I don't need to listen to them.
We should see hopefully some good football, and we're all going to be so geared up. Then 2 weeks after this weekend, the Browns will be playing on September 10th in week 1 against Joe Schmo and those Cincinnati Bengals. Like I mentioned at the beginning, I kind of jumped ahead a bit, So look forward to that, and we'll look forward to more conversation here on the Fanatical Elfz Network. And thanks again for joining us in the Fanatical Elfz Show. Guys, thanks again. Take care and go Browns.
Go Browns.
See ya, everybody.